Good evening. Welcome to the July 1st regular council meeting of Pasco City Council. We have agendas available on the corner desk over here if you'd like to follow along, or a more detailed council packet is available through the city's website. We also televise our meeting live on Charter Cable Channel 191, as well as broadcast through the city's website as well as Facebook Live. If you have any cell phones, I'd ask you to mute those so that the meeting isn't interrupted. And if you get a chance to speak with council, you'd come to the podium up here and share your name with us for our record keeping, and we'd be very grateful. With housekeeping taken care of, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Alvarado.
Present.
Barajas.
Present.
Maloney.
Here.
Martinez.
Present.
Milne.
Present.
Serrano.
Here.
Watkins.
Here.
7 present, Mr. Mayor.
And if you join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 3 on the agenda is the consent agenda, and we consider these items to be routine and will act them as a single roll call vote unless a member of the council or member of the public wants something considered separately. Those items include the approval of the June 17th minutes, bills and communications to approve claims in the amount of $4,247,741.53. Settlement of a total site services claim, specifically approve the compromise settlement and release agreement with Total Site Services, and authorize the city manager to execute the agreement. Those are the 3 items on the consent agenda. Anything to be removed? Hearing none, Mr. Maloney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve the consent agenda as read.
It's been moved and seconded by Mr. Serrano. I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Watkins.
Yes.
Alvarado.
Yes.
Barajas.
Yes.
Maloney.
Yes.
Martinez.
Yes.
Milne.
Yes.
Serrano.
Yes.
Unanimous. Yes.
Unanimous. Therefore, we have a consent agenda. We're going to move on to section 4 tonight. We have a variety of proclamations this evening. And the first is a special treat for myself and I believe some other council members. I know that we have some representatives this evening from the Pacific Northwest Mustang Club, including Corky Farrell and Ellen Anderson. And if you want to come on up, these are probably faces familiar with council members, or if you've been on at a parade in Pasco, these are the folks driving the wonderful Mustangs. And if you want to come on up, I have a proclamation I'm going to read to you, if that's okay. And I recognize Corky because I think it was Cinco de Mayo hauled me around in a wonderful mid-'80s Mustang. And
84.
84 Mustang. And I promised him tonight that I wouldn't make a Camaro or or any reference to a Chrysler product or anything, because Mustangs rock.
Yeah, we got other people's trophies that are shows too.
Well, these folks have been doing Mustang in Pasco and the Tri-Cities and probably other areas, and I thought, well, actually, I think what another person thought, and I thought it was a wonderful idea to do a little proclamation and ask that the people of Pasco and the community celebrate July as the Pacific Northwest Mustang Club Appreciation Month. And we've appreciated, besides your years of service, we know that also the role of the club plays with the city of Pasco and the greater Tri-Cities area, and contributions to foster a more vibrant community and spirit of collaboration with the community. And one of the ongoing services the club has provided has been shuttle dignitaries and royalty during the Grand Ole Fourth Parade. That's coming up, obviously. Also, I have fond personal memories of 16 years sitting on a blanket, covered convertible tops, restored Mustangs, waving to crowds, talking with owners, and cruising the streets of Pasco. Just a wonderful memory. And also, the club will again be providing services to showcase the Grand Ole Fourth Parade to the public. So I'd ask everybody to have July as Mustang Appreciation Month. And we also do have a little plaque I'd like to present you, and want to thank you. We're going to probably give you a couple rounds of applause. We'll do one as I'm walking down. Well, just stand right here, and I'm going to take a picture. Oh, see how this? See how that goes. The crowd's going to be really tolerant because they like Mustangs. Everybody like Mustangs?
Want me to get a picture with both of you?
Would you like to come up? See how
I'll use your phone.
Pasco proud.
Can I say?
Why'd you hold on to that?
You get in there, I'll stand here.
Thank you. And you're gonna keep coming to us? We'll be here on the 4th. Thank you very much. So shifting gears just a bit, what we also do, and this is an ongoing thing that we do through the mostly the spring, summer, and early fall months, Yard and Business of the Month Awards. And what we do is we present a certificate to a few selected houses in the community and also one business. And what the certificate says is, we hereby express our gratitude for your contribution toward community enrichment and quality of life by the improvements made to the natural beauty of your surroundings and serving as a good example for others. And the first tonight is Javier Ascension at 1723 North 6th Avenue. Is Mr. Ascension here by chance? Yeah. Well, while you're coming up, the usual question, I have a certificate, usually ask, you end up doing all the work, or do you have a child, or do you hire out? How do you make your yard look so good?
I work.
Well, wonderful. It looks wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So the next Yard of the Month award goes to Santos Echeverria.
Yes, I am.
Oh, please come on up.
Bring your interpreter, and just because you need.
Mi yerno, el esposo de mi hija.
I would just, that was okay, Mayor Watkins, but it sounds like it's the son-in-law who does a lot of the yard work in her house, and she must have a great son-in-law.
Next certificate of appreciation goes to Erica Lowe. Ms. Lowe, you there?
Take a look still, wonderful yard. That's the greenest yard I've seen.
All right, next one goes to Craig Sakic of 3121 Chardonnay Drive. You here tonight? All right.
And they'll get those certificates, and you want to do the business one as well?
Absolutely. And so finally, for the Business of the Month Appearance Award, this goes to Northwest Farm Credit Services at 9915 St. Thomas Drive. Do we have a representative here from Northwest Farm Credit Services? All right, well, we'll get these all mailed out to them. And so, wonderful for folks in this community to help really make it what it is. It's not the city that does the work, it's the people. And this demonstrates it very much.
And as Mr. Maloney pointed out, we'll get them the certificates, and that latter one too, if you've driven by Road 100 right off of the off-ramp, that's the new building here in the past probably 6 months or so. We also have a final award, a variety of presented letters of appreciation for some members. We have a picture of a delegation that went to Colorado representing the city for the All-America City delegation. And this is going to be one of those that I'm going to call kind of groups, and most of the audience is going to end up standing up, and that's wonderful. But we wanted to, our partners in the community, and I want to just read one of these letters and know that we've got a lot of folks who are going to be giving these letters too. And I say in the letter is, on behalf of the City of Pasco, I want to thank you and your agency for supporting the Pasco community's effort to become an All-America City for 2019. Even though we did not quite achieve All-America City designation, being named a finalist for 2 consecutive years shows the progress and pride of Pasco to the entire nation. Your efforts towards the All-America City effort are very appreciated, but more importantly, the work is improving the lives of Pasco residents each day. And again, and because of you, we all can be Pasco proud. And with that, group representatives from Pasco Fire. I know that I saw a uniform, Ms. Crowley. We have Pasco Fire came with this group. Consistent Care, do we have any representatives of Consistent Care? If you want to come on up, that's great too. And then we also have Tri-City Community Health, and I know that we've got some representatives there. Columbia Basin College, we also had CBC come to this event. Pasco School District, and also representatives from the Hot Spotters program. But, well, Ms. Crowley, I bet you can also cover that as well, unless we have also a police representative. And I'm going to ask our clerk if he needs some help. Anybody else with those groups, come on up. We need to recognize everybody with all of those groups. You went to All America City or helped out. Come on up, okay? And council members, too. Council members over there.
David, Craig.
And there's for that, and Consistent Care.
Thank
Thank you, and TCCH. I think that's, actually, I think that might be a batch of them here. Okay? If you do me a favor, check that they're right. And then, if not, Angela will help out. So, Columbia Basin College, there we are. And Pasco School District. Okay, that's okay. And Hot Spotters program too, there. And I don't know if anybody want to share their thoughts on the experience? Anybody? You got voluntold.
She's voluntold.
I always get volunteered. My name is Becky Gross with Consistent Care, and I just would like to say that we were very honored to represent Pasco in Denver. We had some pretty stiff competition there, but we were able to stay positive. We met some nice people. We were able to share a lot of our community's programs with other cities, and they were all very impressed with the work that we're doing here in Pasco. So thank you so much for supporting us in that, and thank you for supporting us in the programs that led us to be able to be a candidate for the All-American City.
Thank you.
We can get close to each other. We like each other.
Thank you.
So every year, more going on in Pasco and the Tri-Cities, and great to have 3 recognitions under this section. We're going to continue on with the agenda. We go to section 5 on the agenda, visitors other than agenda items. If anybody wants to speak on an item that's not on the agenda, this will be your opportunity. And I see, yes, sir.
Well, good evening. My name is Tim Tippett. I don't live within the city. I live out at 950 East Foster Wells Road. But where we live, we are impacted by one of the operations of the city. And that's why we came here tonight. It's our belief that some of the council members are not aware of what is going on out at the reuse facility where the wastewater treatment facility is located. I've lived out there prior to this operation even becoming a brainchild. Been there for 34 years. The city purchased the wastewater fields back in 1989, 1990 for the express purpose of allowing the wastewater application from the processing plants. The reason that we're here tonight is for many, many years, we have withstood the rancid odor from that pond. We can't take it anymore. We realize that there are operations underway to fix this, but we've been hearing this same story for in excess of 15 years. It is miserable. We can't sleep with our doors open. We can't have guests. We can't dine outside. You can't even go out in the morning and have a cup of coffee at 6 o'clock. It's so bad. When the city first bought this properties, Tippett Land and Mortgage assisted the city in acquiring these lands from the railroad. At that time, Wally Hickerson, a consulting engineer, the late Wally Hickerson, he's deceased now, was involved And I asked him a point-blank question, because I lived there before this all came about. I said, Wally, what about the odor? He says, Tim, if this is managed properly, there will be no odor. Either somebody lied or it's been a management issue. I believe it's the management issue or the mismanagement. I don't know what it's going to take to get this thing fixed. Everybody keeps pointing the finger at Pasco Processing. The owner of Pasco Processing owns in excess of 12 processing facilities throughout 3 states. We don't have this problem elsewhere. He does not have this problem elsewhere. The common denominator here seems to be the city of Pasco in their management style. We don't know why it can't be fixed. We've made suggestions. We've had people want to come and add some additives to the waste ponds. I've suggested anaerobic digesters. All you keep doing is just bringing in more consultants and spending money. It's just beyond bearable out there at times. And I don't know if any of you are aware of it. I know that Saul talked to Trevor Gamache, my neighbor, a few nights ago. But that's my reason for coming here tonight, to make the council aware of the impact to our neighborhood out there. We have no quality of life anymore. It is ridiculous. And I don't know what it's going to take. We're just tired of one more promise after another. We have retained an attorney who wrote to Lee Kerr, who was your former counsel. Lee wrote back and said, basically, we are in compliance. Leave us alone. You're not in compliance because of the odor and the stench. When that pond goes septic, it is a nightmare. And I'm not so sure that maybe you don't have an acid, a gas that's toxic, hydrochloric sulfide. I would like to know that. I've talked to the people at the college. They think maybe that gas does exist and it is toxic. So you're not in compliance. The Department of Ecology is aware of what's going on. And I know that your permit's coming up for renewal here in a year. So you got some deep challenges and hurdles to overcome. So thank you for listening to me.
And thank you, Mr. Tippett. You're aware that this is one of those that we don't get into and going to solve it this evening. But I also am aware too that you are talking with staff, including Mr. Zabel.
Yes.
And I think all of us are going to want to be as good neighbors as we can reasonably.
Exactly.
In an industrial situation.
Right. We don't want to be complainers because we've lived with it for over 15 years.
Okay.
But we just can't deal with it anymore.
Especially new council members also listening too, so appreciate your thoughts on that.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Anybody else this evening? I'm going to go ahead and Mr. Worsham first, and we'll do this. This is the theme. Okay. Mr. Worsham.
I'm Harold Worsham. I live on Foster Wells. Everything that Tim has said is correct. I have brought in a sample of what we're breathing, which would be good for all of you to smell. Would you guys like to smell?
Any objections?
Absolutely.
Something passed around?
Yeah, absolutely, I will.
Mr. Serrano, do you mind grabbing hold first?
Sorry, it might take a little time. Hold on, I want to put my gloves on.
Okay.
You know?
Okay.
So,
and give us a little context. This is something that you've gotten from the facility itself?
This is what we live with.
Where did you get this specifically?
I got it from a cesspool next to one of my farms, one of my fields I farm in.
Okay.
This is I did not go get it out of the
So if you
reuse
do me a
facility.
favor, keep it on, and then we'll let the council members.
We did this.
You've taken chemistry, you know how to whip it off the top.
Jesus Christ, this is what we smell. Now times this by 1,000.
And also some distance too.
Take a big old whiff. Don't be afraid.
Smell that.
What's that smell like to you?
Fair enough.
Matt? So?
Reminds me a little bit of pollywogs growing up.
Oh, shit, you get a good enough whiff. Imagine barbecuing this.
Harold, if you could watch the language, please.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just let you know,
Sorry, sir.
just let you know, Councilman Ruben and myself did go out there last month.
Smell again?
Oh, we were out there. It was,
Okay.
really bad.
Meanwhile, while Harold's sharing the sample, Mr. Gamache?
You betcha. My name's Trevor Gamache, and I live on Foster Wells also. Lived there for 16 years. And basically what Tim said tonight.
Good God.
Yeah, I know, smells like my living room. This stuff does come through with a northern wind or an inversion. It will come through the walls of the house. It will be inside the house. The flies are ridiculous. I think we have special breeds of flies out there. They're just mean. But is everybody aware that we did write a letter to the city a month ago? Has everybody even read that letter or anything like that?
This isn't going to be a back and forth, but if
Okay.
you wrote a letter, that's...
So we wrote a letter to the city a month ago. We got no we got a response from Mr. Kerr only. No response from anybody in the council here at all. I did receive a phone call from Dave just a couple hours ago, right before the meeting tonight, as first response. But we've only, in 16 years, it's nothing but lip service. We've been promises to fix the problem. When we first moved in, we'd call the city manager, and he said he would add more water to the pond and dilute it out and to get rid of the smell. And we're like, okay, we're new. And then they would send the ladies flowers. They'd send my wife flowers or Marlene Tippett flowers for the inconvenience. And we don't need flowers. We just need the problem fixed. Last year, Steve Worley, he asked us to, if we would grant easement through our property, through our front yards, backyards, to add another pipeline for Grimway carrots to dump into the pond also. And we were like, we'd be more than happy to give you easement if you address the stink issue first. He couldn't promise that. He could not commit to that. He said we have to spend our grant money that we have available. So they decided to go around capital, tear up the new capital development you guys did a few years ago. Lack of concern, lack of, I don't know what to say there, but just going around this lack of, lost my train of thought there, but anyways, so he couldn't believe that we were not going to grant them issue or easement. So we called the Department of Ecology a year ago. I asked for some monitors, some air quality monitors to be set up. And they said it'll be about a year because all our monitors are being used right now. So I waited a year and I called the ecology. I said, hey, did you guys get those monitors set up? That guy retired a month after I talked to him. So the Department of Ecology dropped the ball too. And so I got a new contact up there. We are in touch with those guys, but quality of life, guys, is slim to none. We can't invite family over. I know Tim said all this, but it's been going on way too long. We wrote a letter to get your attention. We haven't got your attention, and this is why we are here tonight. And it's frustrating. So appreciate your time, and hopefully we are talking more about this.
We have changed the way we have to live on Foster Wells because of that stink. I added onto my house to avoid the stink. Open a window, that's what you live with. It's terrible. Absolutely terrible, guys. Thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So we got some more work to do, clearly. Thank you. Anybody else on the smell issue? If not, we're still in visitor comments. Anybody else want to speak? Yes, sir.
I'm going to introduce myself properly this time. Jeffrey Robinson, proud resident of Councilman Milne's district. I rise today because the 4th of July is in 3 days. And you folks last year made a very difficult decision that had some very real-world consequences. You decided to lift the ban on fireworks. And as a sexual assault survivor, a person living with autism, and someone who has PTSD, that was very painful. But I rise today to tell you that I agreed with your decision then, and I agree with how you have handled it since. You had the best motives and intentions of the city. Fireworks are a difficult thing to police, especially when we are all so excited about this great country that we live in, and we all want to celebrate. But that's the mark of leadership, when you make a difficult decision, even if it's unpopular. And so while, for me personally, the consequences of that decision have been rather terrible each 4th of July year, or each time since you made it that we go into this period, I will say this. It made me respect you that you knew it would be unpopular and you did it anyway because you thought it was what was the best thing for this city. It saved police dollars, and again, you are working on that. It was something to see my city council take a bold stand. You've taken quite a few of those. I just wanted to rise to remind you that what you do matters, and that even when you make a mistake, your intentions oftentimes make that mistake something that is still worth a sense of pride and trust. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else this evening? Yes, sir.
Thanks again for letting me have some time this evening. My name is Justin Carey. Thank you again also for your support of the First Amendment in our great city here close to the 4th of July. It's extremely important. I exercise that First Amendment again against Planned Parenthood and their clear violation of the right to life as expressed in our Declaration of Independence, the foundation of which is the Constitution and the Bill of Rights was written upon. I want to talk about some of the common arguments that Planned Parenthood makes and justifies their existence in our city. Pro-abortion supporters would use these to also justify abortion itself. Firstly, abortion is justified.
Mr.
Yes,
Carey,
sir.
and I just want to ask, so this is about the third time you've been.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to ask very specifically, do you have new information that you've not presented before?
I'm always trying to, yes, sir, always trying to present new information
Appreciate
in support of the same argument.
Okay.
If that's acceptable.
Yes.
Okay. I just want to talk about how abortion is justified based on the size, that it's okay to kill something because it's small. This logic cannot be applied to any other human, obviously, and size is a poor argument against justifying the killing of anything. A second common argument for abortion is the level of development. They claim that since a baby isn't fully formed, it can be killed if the mother so desires. Though the baby isn't formed, a baby isn't fully formed, a 9-month-old isn't fully formed either. A toddler isn't fully developed. Even when a male or female completes puberty and appears to be an adult, their brain isn't fully formed until they're 25. And this just covers humans that function without genetic defects or any sort of handicap. It's a very dangerous argument that doesn't stand the test of logic. A third major argument is environment. Essentially, the pro-abortion movement states that because of where an unborn baby is located, it's acceptable to kill it, and somehow a trip down the 7-inch birth canal makes it human when it wasn't before. Where I live or what room I'm in has no bearing on my status as a human being or my rights. This same logic could be applied in an effort to eliminate a so-called bad part of town or a rundown house in the neighborhood. This argument is a fallacy as well. A fourth major argument, finally, is the level of dependency. Unborn babies are dependent on their mother, and so are born babies. Should we be allowed to kill them? What about toddlers? Not many 2-year-olds can survive without their mother. What about people on drugs, illegal or legal? They are dependent, when we shouldn't be killing them. All these arguments are logically incorrect. Modern medical equipment can detect a heartbeat as early as 4 weeks. Babies have arms, legs, fingers, and toes at 8 weeks. Babies born at 22 weeks can survive 15% of the time.
And I'm asking.
Almost done. Yes, sir. Thank you. All this is relevant to the council because Planned Parenthood promotes all of these arguments, and they exist in our city because of a special permit that was approved by the city almost 10 years ago. While they don't actually perform abortions in Pasco, it stands to reason that they are referring mothers right across the river. In 2015, a higher percentage of women from Franklin County had abortions than in Yakima or Benton counties that have abortion mills in them. The fact that Planned Parenthood in Pasco doesn't perform abortions is no justification for its existence. Planned Parenthood's special permit must be revoked. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else this evening? Hearing none, we're going to go on with the agenda. We're going to go to item 6 on the agenda, reports from committees or officers. Anybody attend an event or meeting they wish to share with council? Mr. Alvarado.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Couple things. One was on Tuesday, I attended a trauma-informed care conference that happened here in Pasco and at the Red Lion. Many folks from throughout the region came, educators and healthcare professionals, to learn more about trauma-informed care and the effects of ACEs in our community. So that was a great event on Tuesday. And then on the rest of the week, Councilmember Barajas and City Manager and a few other staff were over in City of Pasco representing, City of Spokane representing the City of Pasco at the AWC. So various cities have an annual conference, and just lots of learning. A lot of the specific different classes that I attended had to do with the gap in housing and how certain cities are addressing affordable housing issues and homelessness. And so it's very informative to see other folks in various communities, how they're addressing these issues, what financing mechanisms they're applying for so that they can make their communities better and really address these very serious issues. So it's very great to attend that. And then we also attended a tour of a facility that does supportive housing as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alvarado. Ms. Barajas.
Nothing much to add. I think Councilmember Alvarado said everything. But yes, I attended the Association of Washington Cities training just like him. Did learn a lot of ways to advocate for the city and for the people, our residents. Mr. Isabella, is this where you want me to? Okay. And so one of the things that, while at Spokane, one of the things that the City of Pasco is a recipient of again, and I don't know if we have any other representatives. We have Mr. Shear, Chief Geary, if you want to come to the front. We have been awarded the Municipal Excellence Award.
And this comes bearing gifts, Mr. Gear.
So this is, sorry,
Mr.
can you hear me? This is awarded for the Hot Spotters program, again, for your excellent work.
Mr. Shearer?
Thank you, Mayor.
You bet. And I just know too, this, staff sitting there thinking, how can we better utilize our resources and also maybe show some compassion with some individuals in extra need. I know, Mr. Gear, you were instrumental and involved in that, and I know a bunch of other people were too, and we thank you. That's some good government there, and we appreciate it. Any other thoughts? Mr. Maloney?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have any specific reports, but I just wanted to add on to that. Tracy here was down in Denver with us and has a very personal story that how Hot Spotters really is affecting people's lives, and their human element is deeply important. Not only is this good governance and this is good use of our resources, but this is good for the human element as well. And her personal story is deeply touching.
Also note, we have general fund monthly report for May 2019. And if no, we're done with section 6. We'll go on to 7 on the agenda, hearings and council actions on ordinances and resolutions relating thereto. First item is going to be a public hearing, but I'll ask staff for some introductory comments about an easement vacation for vacating easements at Stevens Middle School. Mr. White.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. And tonight's public hearing is for vacating a series of easements at the Stevens Middle School site. As Council knows, I'm sure the existing Stevens Middle School will be demolished. But before it is, a new one will be built in its place. So the new school will be built, then the old school will be demolished. The school district has requested vacating 7 easements at the very southwestern portion of the site near the bottom of the Stevens Middle School site that involve the city, the irrigation district, and Franklin Public Utility District. None of the utility providers, including the city, have any issues with the proposed vacation, as the district has made alternate arrangements for both the location and provision of the affected utilities.
Any questions by council of staff before I open up public hearing? Hearing none, I'll open a public hearing. If anybody's come this evening, this is of course public land, so we do a hearing on these sorts of things. I'll do a second call. This is easements are go through a variety of processes to make sure that we don't need them or other agencies don't need them in the future. I think you can also see from the picture too that they call it the campus of Stevens trying to do development in that, and I'll do a third and final call. Not seeing any hands raised, so I'm going to close the public hearing. And Mr. Maloney, would you like to make a motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve ordinance number 4443, vacating 7 easements at 1023 North 24th Avenue, and further authorize publication by summary only.
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Alvarado. Any questions? Mr. Maloney.
Yes, thank you. Mr. White, I see in the agenda report that the Franklin County Irrigation District doesn't actually finalize this in their board meeting until tomorrow. Do you anticipate any issue with us approving it at this time and them approving it one day later?
No, I don't. We checked personally with them.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of ordinance number 4443 say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. And good luck to school district. We know that space is at a premium, and so reutilizing space. Look forward to the new Stevens Middle School, and I think I have some bad news for my mother and some folks that went there, but that's the change happens. With that, we go to item B, 20th Avenue Overlay Project Bid Award, an item we talked about last. Oh, did I miss one? No? Okay, so 20th Avenue Overlay Bid Project Award. Mr. Ford, or any comments last night? I see a couple staff. Am I out of order here?
We have a code amendment, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking 7A and I skipped to 8B. I apologize. Okay, so Section 8, or 8A, Code Amendment, Shared Street Frontages. Thank you, Mr. White. Can you bring us up to speed on this one?
I can. This probably looks familiar to council. You considered it at the workshop on June 10th. It is a proposed amendment to the municipal code that would allow up to 3 lots to be created without public street frontage, of course, subject to the limitations and conditions that are contained in the proposed ordinance. The city attorney and the city attorney's office has vetted the ordinance, and staff believes that this will assist in making better utilization of difficult to develop properties within the urban area, and may even help slow down the rise of housing development costs. The Planning Commission considered this numerous times at numerous workshops and public hearings and has forwarded a recommendation of approval to council.
Thank you, Mr. White. Questions or a motion? Mr. Maloney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to adopt ordinance number 4444, amending PMC Section 21.20.050, lot requirements, and creating Section 21.20.060, lots without public street frontage, and further authorize publication by summary only.
There is a motion. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Mr. Martinez. Discussion on this one. Mr. Alvarado.
Yeah, I had a question that came up as I was rereading this information. And so one of the things I was just curious, but is there a way to prevent I guess prevent would be the right word, developers from subsidizing, from creating subdivisions with the intent of utilizing a strategy for avoiding building a road? So let's say you have a patch of land, it's large enough to build a cul-de-sac through it, but let's say, I'm going to subdivide it into 2 so I can do this, and instead of having to build a full road, and I'm just having to build these driveways. Do we have kind of a way to prevent that, or is that just?
No, the ordinance specifically speaks to the lot must present topographic or some kind of geometric difficulty or be irregular in size or shape to utilize the non-public street frontage. And of course, the underlying density of the zoning district is still applicable, as is the subdivision process. So we do have a series of checks and balances that will prevent either misuse or a serial creation of perhaps substandard lots.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's I think a concern I would have, that there could be an abuse of this code amendment.
If we were to adopt this is the kind of thing that 6 months or a year afterwards, the staff would anticipate following up how it went if we adopt this?
That would be very easy to track, and be happy to provide council a report.
Okay. Other questions or discussion? If hearing none, of course, and thanks for reminding me that this was one item we did at a workshop meeting as well as Planning Commission. I'll ask for your vote this evening. All those in favor of ordinance number 4444, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. And be interested in seeing the result of how that goes after the next 6 months or a year. And I think I'm on target now. So section 8B related to 20th Avenue overlay project bid award, Mr. Ford. No.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and Council. There were no changes to the what we discussed last week in the workshop. This is for 20th Avenue overlay project bid award. There was a question last week as to the number of working days. 50 working days was in the contract.
Specifically. Questions or a motion? Mr. Maloney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to award the low bid for the 20th Avenue overlay project to Central Washington Asphalt of Benton City, and in the amount of $386,587.65, and further authorize the city manager to execute the contract documents.
It's been moved. Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Barajas. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the overlay project bid award say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. And more public works related, Burbank Irrigation District water rights purchase and sales agreement. Again, talked about it at a workshop meeting. Any updates since discussion last time?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor and Council, there were several questions asked last week. Those items were addressed in the agenda report. I'd be happy to go through those if you'd like me to.
Any council members, anything that wasn't answered in the agenda report and want to cover? Mr. Maloney.
Yes, thank you. I do still have a question regarding the that first right of refusal. I understand in the agenda report that, there's a clarification as to the intention, but I was having trouble finding it in the contractual document that covered that at all. Certainly under default or any of the other items, it did not explicitly cover that. And so I would like some additional assurances as to how this contract covers. It says what we all want it to say, as opposed to what I'm reading it as a layman.
Mr. Ferguson.
Great, thank you. So I'm guessing you're talking specifically about section 18. Is that the same one that we were referring to last time, I believe? So it is without trying to put on a law clinic, I'll try to be as brief as I can, but essentially what it says, the first part of it says that we are bound by all the conditions that are in here, and then we are able to assign it, but if we do assign it, we have to get the district's permission. So that's the assignability portion, excuse me. And then as you go on further down, it talks about how if we assign that, and they give us permission to be able to assign that, we're still not relieved from the duties of this. So it is a little bit, it functions a little bit as a right of first refusal, but it doesn't come right out and say that we have to go to them first for them to be able to refuse to accept these back. It's really more of a, we need to get their permission if we assign these to someone, and then if they wanted to then have us be able to reassign them to them, they could take advantage of that, but we're not bound necessarily to have to assign them back to them. We just have to get their permission. So it is kind of an odd process.
Because what I'm specifically, my question was last week and remains is that with a quit claim deed, typically you're giving up all rights, period. And I'm trying to understand why we're being bound by this particular thing. Again, I believe the water rights are a fantastic thing. We know we're going to need more water as we go, but and if this is just the way it needs to be, I will.
No, I can explain a little bit more about how the quitclaim process would work. But essentially,
yes,
the way, and I'll I'll defer to Nancy in the audience here because she's our water rights expert. So if she has something she wants to add, I want to make sure I don't keep her from being able to jump in here. But essentially, how the quitclaim process would work is the deeds, that's how they would be transferred, but the way this contract is structured, it has payments. We have 4 payments that have to be met, and then we would be able to obtain the rights to these, so the full rights to these. Now, it's kind of a 2-step process because we have to go through all these contingencies first before then we're allowed to come back and be able to have full ownership interest in these. So it is a little bit of a nuanced process because what we're really trying to do is string out the payment so that it's not one big payment right up front, but the use and the possession of all of these won't necessarily take place at the exact same time. So is that, Nancy, you?
That's sort of right.
She said sort of right. Do you have any clarifying information you wish to share, ma'am? Yeah, so we can hear you. And Mr. Ferguson said your name, but if you would share your name.
I'm Nancy Aldridge. I'm with Geoengineers. I'm one of your consultants on water rights. There's a 2-step process in acquiring water rights through the state. Number 1 is the quitclaim process, which is part of your documents now. With the approval, if approval is tonight, there'll be signatures on the quitclaim deed. Legally, you'll own the water right. But in the eyes of the state, you won't own the water right until it's been reassigned through the Department of Ecology, which could or could not, which most likely will occur at the end of the 4th year.
So there's more parties involved than just
There's more
us and
parties
one another.
involved instead of just you. The ecology is involved. Plus, this process will go through the Franklin County Water Conservancy Board.
Is that helpful or any
Does
other
that help?
questions? Since
And
you
what
have
it is that I understand your comments on Section 18, but the thing is that the city needs this water. There's no intent in any way that I'm aware of to assign it to anybody else. Once this is done, they actually own it, where under the ecologies, if you see in the staff report, they're talking about the 5,000 acres, that's a lease, which could go away in 30 years because that's part of the Lake Roosevelt trial down. So this is an actual ownership, which means you're going to own it in perpetuity. So I don't see the city at any point in time reassigning this water right. And keep in mind that in 2018, I believe it was, if I'm correct, Rick, there were 487 single-family residence permits, building permits given. 320 acre feet will serve around 400 houses. And you're building, you know. So my goal, my job is to go out and continuously look for water rights to assure that you're ahead of the bubble on your growth.
I appreciate that. And I guess I understand that I understand that this is important, and so I will back off this little quibble I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
And well, it's also water rights is a bit of a specialized thing in our world too. And I've heard this story that if you understand water rights, you're delusional in its entirety, or that there's a very relatively fair number of people that Western water law is a fairly complex subject.
Well,
but I also say that not being an attorney, and know we have multiple attorneys in the room. Mr. Serrano, you have some thoughts.
Sure, thank you. The question from last week was whether these are perfected, or is that the process you're discussing?
The process, these water rights have already been perfected because they've been certificated by Ecology. That means that Burbank at some point pumped them to their beneficial use, did a proof of appropriation, and Ecology then turned around and certificated them. The intent is to add a well that's hydraulically connected to the river to this water, to add this well to this water right, and pump this to beneficial use once again for 1 year to 2 years. At that point, we'll go back to Ecology. Because this is a municipal right, not an irrigation right, the intent is to add in 2 years, add your intake structures as an additional point of withdrawal so you can use it for potable sources and not just irrigation.
The color of water.
It's the color of water. And I'll be very honest, I've been doing this for 15 years and I learn something new every day. It's the way it is, you know, like Mark Twain said, you know, whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting. Anything else?
Mr. Ferguson, you had any other thoughts?
I just do want to be clear that this isn't technically a right of first refusal. So I think that while it could end up eventually functioning that way, that's not how what it actually is. But it is going to be quite the step-by-step process for how it effectuates.
But also to point out is that this is a process, and that when we get a certificate from Department of Ecology, that's an important milestone with this batch of water rights that's coming up in the future, and add to the portfolio, and it becomes part of that larger portfolio of water that the city has.
And all those contingencies are addressed in this agreement, so there shouldn't be any issues with that.
Walking slowly and carefully on water rights is important stuff, so thank you for all the questions and all the discussion. I guess we do have a question still in front of us, Burbank Irrigation District water rights. Any other discussion? Mr. Maloney?
I'll make a motion if you.
Oh,
at
thank
your pleasure.
you. That would help. It's very important. Yes.
I move to approve the water right purchase and sale agreement with the Burbank Irrigation District, and further authorize the city manager to execute the agreement.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Serrano. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. And we go to item D on the agenda, Foster Wells Force Main Agreement, item we've talked about in past meetings. Any updates, Mr. Ford, since last discussion on this?
No changes, Mr.
Okay.
Mayor.
Questions or motion? Mr. Maloney? Or Mr. Serrano?
I do have a question before getting to the motion. To the extent that we were to approve this, does authorizing this and constructing this, is that going to help exacerbate the scent, the odors in any way? I mean, do the ruptures that we're trying to avoid cause that in any way?
It does neither. It's a redundant system to the aging system that's there, so it's just conveying the effluent from the Foster Wells industrial area more reliably.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Maloney?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve the Foster Wells Force Main Reimbursement Agreement with the processors for the purpose of providing an additional force main for processed wastewater transmission from the Foster Wells lift station to the processed water reuse facility, and further authorize the city manager to execute the agreement.
It's been moved. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Mr. Milne. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. And I believe we have a second related to Section E for 18080 Foster Wells Force Main Improvements. Any updates, Mr. Ford?
Again, Mr. Mayor and Council, no changes from last week's workshop.
Mr. Maloney?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to award the Foster Wells Force Main Improvements Project to C&E Trenching, LLC, in the amount of $4,768,614.05 for the base bid and additive bid 1, and authorize the city manager to execute the contract documents.
There's a motion. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Barajas. Discussion? Mr. Maloney?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Ford, one of the things I saw in Schedule A is we're talking about a 20-inch diameter HDPE pipe for the force main, and my recollection was that in the agreement that we just approved, it was 16 inches. Can you speak at all to the upsizing that we're doing here?
Yeah, I'll let our senior engineer, Maria Sierra, actually speak to that point.
Good evening. Yes, the difference between the 16 and the 20 is just the way the pipe is mentioned, because it's HDPE piping, so the internal size of the pipe is 16 inches, but since it's iron pipe sizing, then we have to call it for our specifications as a 20-inch.
Thank you.
Mr. Serrano?
Thank you. Obviously, I'm going to vote to accept this, but I do think that given the light of the information that's been presented by the public, we need some more information on those odors and how the city's approaching this. Certainly, I was unaware of some of the legal issues, and I know that we're not always aware of all legal issues that the city's facing, but at the same time, as we continue to grow, we need to be aware of the impacts of the growth. This is a project that's brought a lot of money into the city, and we've talked about how great the foresight was, but at the same time, it's impacting lives. I personally want more information. So whether it's just me or the rest. Thank you.
And of course, we've got the bid award tonight, but I would imagine too, Mr. Zabel, maybe something to cover under miscellaneous discussion this evening. Is that something we might be able to talk about a bit, or do you have any thoughts?
I would prefer that Steve Worley be here.
Okay.
Have that discussion.
To that extent, it doesn't have to be tonight. Just, more information would be helpful to really understand kind of where we are in the process, conversations that have been had. Whether it's information we need in executive session or outside, I'm fine with either.
Mr. Zabel, fair enough?
Yes.
Okay. Any other discussion on the force main here this evening? Hearing none, all those in favor of the award to C&E Trenching signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. With that, we go on to another public works project related to a Capitol Avenue sewer lift station. Mr. Ford, any updates since the last
Yeah,
time?
Mr. Mayor and Council, bring before you tonight final project acceptance for the Capitol Avenue sewer lift station. The project is complete and brought for your consideration. The final construction contract at $804,537.10.
Questions or a motion? Mr. Maloney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve resolution number 3903, accepting work performed by C&E Trenching LLC under contract for the Capitol Avenue Sewer Lift Station construction.
It's been moved. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Milne. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. And with that, we go to section 8G, a collective bargaining agreement with Pasco Police Officers Non-Uniform Group. Mr. Zabel.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, and thank you. I know we've discussed this in an executive session under the exemption, but this is our first opportunity in open session, so I want to talk a little bit about it. So before you, for your considerations, negotiated successor collective bargaining agreement with Pasco Police Officers Association non-uniformed unit. That's a unit of about 7 employees. The agreement is set to expire December 31st, 2019, so we're a little ahead of the game. Those are records clerks, our evidence tech, our crime analysts, folks like that provide that essential support for our uniformed and commissioned police officers. So we had a goal when we started out the negotiations to settle before the agreement expired, and those negotiations went really well. A lot of that credit goes to the unit itself, as well as our HR manager, Colleen Chapin, who's in the audience tonight. And we wound up coming to a tentative agreement right around the end of April, and the major economic points centered around cost of living adjustments, and so effective January 2020, 90% CPI with a floor of 2 and a max of 0.5%, plus a 1% bump that July. Same for 2021, those same parameters, 90% CPI with the same floor and ceiling. And then effective July 2022, a 3% flat wage increase. There is also a provision for a dual language incentive for 1%. We have that in most of our bargaining agreements, as we found in serving our population, having bilingual skills are very valuable to the city, and we recommend approval.
Questions or discussion or a motion? Mr. Maloney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve the collective bargaining agreement with Pasco Police Officers Association non-uniform for the years 2020 to 2022, and further authorize the city manager to execute the agreement.
I'll second. It's been moved and seconded by Mr. Martinez. Discussion on this one? I'm sure the answer is yes. To just confirm, Mr. Zabel, this is budgeted with these expectations?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the agreement with the PPOA signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. And I don't know if we have any PPOA members here, but or pass along. We appreciate the discussion, and having something ahead of an end of agreement is not totally unique, but is also pleasant to have happen. So we appreciate that. With that, we are done with Section 8 on the agenda. We don't have any unfinished business or new business listed this evening, so we go to item 11, miscellaneous discussion. Mr. Zabel, you have any thoughts?
None this evening.
How about council? Any miscellaneous discussion? Mr. Alvarado?
Yes, I'd love to start a conversation. I know we've had some great success in our committees well, a new committee that we started last year, and it's great to see that up and going. But one that I think is near and dear to me is perhaps to start a conversation about creating a committee for arts and culture, and that's something I know that a few of the council members, I know the citizens at large are interested in. So I'd love to start a conversation about that. I don't have any specific timeline, but I would love to just to perhaps have some conversation around that in the near future.
I would just say, if you want any council members, and all, having been approached once before by some community members, but not enough to want to actually spend the time. It kind of didn't happen then, but if you got some thoughts, or there's some people in Pasco or affiliated with Pasco that do want to do that, I think there is some opportunity. Or if any other thoughts, Mr. Maloney?
Changing gears, if we're good on that topic.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you. I just want to remind everyone that we do have the 4th of July celebration in Pasco coming up on Thursday, and there's a lot going on between the parade and cardboard regatta down at Memorial Pool, and a car show from noon to 4 down at Memorial Park, and of course the fireworks celebration at Giza Stadium. So just there's so much going on the 4th, and please come out, enjoy it. The community is putting on just fantastic celebration for our Independence Day, and enjoy it safely. Thank you.
Segue to reminder too that last year was more of an education mode for people on the safe and sane fireworks, and as we shared and talked about last council meeting, be a little bit more of an enforcement year for the folks who want to fly things, which we'd rather not, and have them go to the Giza Stadium, obviously. So everybody have a safe 4th of July. Mr. Martinez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to echo that. I will tell. I've already seen a couple of fireworks going up in the air around our community. And I just want to encourage everybody, there's no forgiveness, in my opinion, for that. We went out of our way to try to accommodate our community by giving some kind of fun, but there is a line we have to draw, and I just want to encourage everybody to be safe. And, just consider your neighbors when you're doing those kind of things, and just be safe. The last thing we want, especially with little storms that come by like this, when I heard a bunch of fire engines go out right before our meeting, it's not a fun event, and it's very dangerous if something doesn't go right. So please be safe, have a great time, and enjoy your 4th of July. And I also want to share I'll be gone for the next couple of weeks, but be back ready to go.
And summer vacation time too, if council members are going to share with Ms. The clerk those times, so that we make sure we do have quorum coverage. And I don't know if Chief Dickerson, would it be okay to ask you to affirm the principle, if somebody sees some illegal fireworks, call in 911, sir? If you press the little button there.
Yes, I would call 911, and we are going to do a lot of emphasis patrols on the 4th, and we started those 2 days ago, and our officers will be citing violators. And we've also done some advertisement over the radio and on our Facebook page on the types that are legal and the types that are not legal. So I would tell our citizens not to buy the illegal ones. I know you can go to different places and get them, but they're very dangerous. It's very dry out there. I drove in today and the wind was blowing, and you get a spark and can have a lot of problems.
Thank you, Chief. Mr. Zabel?
I would just add that the test is really simple. If it goes in the air, it's illegal. If it explodes, it's illegal. And those are actually the complaints we've been getting about illegal fireworks. Those are the ones we've been seeing. Those are the ones we expect to see.
Great way to end it on a simple note, and everybody enjoy the 4th of July. And with no other items before council, is there a need for an executive session?
Not this evening.
Then we go to 13. We are adjourned. Thank you all for coming.